Hi, everybody. This is Venkat from Simply.Coach, and you're listening to the Growth Dialogues podcast, the show that brings together experts in coaching, therapy, and consulting from around the world.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Growth Dialogues. Our guest today is Ari Weinstein. Welcome to the show, Ari.
Thank you for having me, Venkat. It's great to see you again.
Thank you. So, introduce Ari. Ari is the personification of brand, and I think we met Ari and I met a couple of years ago. My first introduction was to him was through his website. You should visit his website. It's a very clean, very professional website, and he sort of embodies brand management. He's been doing a lot of brand coaching through all his life. And in recent times, I think he's pivoted to career coaching, works with folks across industries. So, Ari, I just wanted to start off talk about your interest in brand management. How did that come about?
Sure. As you know, I call myself a branding coach, or I call the services I deliver brand coaching. And what does that
Hmm.
mean? Well, I partner with my clients to develop their personal brands so they can make a great impression on people who matter to them. And that leads to wonderful work opportunities, wonderful connections. My interest in branding started very early on. Back when I was 6 years old, one of my favorite things to do was create little greeting cards for all of my siblings and parents' birthdays. I grew up with a lot of siblings. And even
Hmm.
back then, when I was 6 years old, I was interested in branding. I made a logo on the back of those greeting cards.
Okay.
So I later pursued brand development professionally. I became a brand developer and I did that for over 30 years. I was developing brands for businesses, including Fortune 500 companies. But I fell in love with coaching and mentoring, and I wondered, what does personal branding and professional branding have in common?
Hmm.
And to answer the question, I ended up writing a book called Personal Branding at Work. And writing that book gave me the opportunity to create a new definition of branding that we
Hmm.
can all relate to. Branding is the impression we make on others. That's it. It's the simplest definition of branding. And so, my interest in personal branding and coaching people to help them improve how they make an impression on other people all started with professional branding as a graphic designer, as a brand developer. And that's where it all started.
Great. So, one of the things I read, Ari, is, and I think this I read about in the context of interviews, employment interviews, that a candidate, when they walk into a room, I think they subconsciously, the interviewer makes a decision within the first 7 seconds, either whether it's verbalize it or not. How true is that? How much does a brand or an individual as a brand, how much does the first impression count?
A first impression is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And in those first few seconds, generally the first thing that happens when we meet people in a job interview is we see them or hear
Mm-hmm.
them. And it's one of the reasons why, as part of brand coaching, what I help my clients become aware of is how they appear on camera, how they
Mm-hmm.
appear in person. Are they smiling? Are they dressed appropriately? Uh, the agency I work with coaches our clients to ask ahead of an interview, what's the appropriate dress code? And that is a perfectly good question to ask these days because we never know. We're showing up on video, we're sitting at home, and we need to become aware of our surroundings because that
Mm-hmm.
is what makes an impression in the first few seconds. What makes an impression in the next few seconds is what you say and
Okay.
how you look. So, smiling, saying hello, nice to be here, those are all things that make a good first impression.
Mm-hmm.
And the importance of first impressions, to answer your question, is it will help the people you're meeting with decide whether to continue the conversation and how
Mm-hmm.
interested they are in you and how engaged they will be in that conversation. So a first impression doesn't matter, but we continue to make an impression throughout the process of a job interview.
I think you talked about the professional branding and the personal branding. How different are those, and how does sort of the professional branding play on to the personal branding space? Sorry.
In professional branding, one of the terms that I now use in both of those that I used to use as a commercial brand developer and now use in personal branding is the concept of brand assets. It's
Mm-hmm.
the idea that what makes up our brand, the things that make an impression on other people, it's not one thing. For example, if we take Apple as an example of a commercial brand, it's not just the logo. The logo just is an apple. But we know Apple for other things. So the totality of things that make the impression are known as brand assets.
Mm.
And your brand identity consists of multiple assets, including the words you say, what you write on a resume or in an introduction letter to someone. And that's the same concept that businesses have with their commercial branding. They have logos, colors, fonts, things they say, messages they deliver via advertising, a certain way in which they present their products and services. As individuals, we have all those same capabilities to create a collection of brand assets to represent ourselves really well. And that's the challenge in branding, is to bring it all together, make it all congruent, and make it all give a clear message about what we're about and how we can be of value to others.
So when you're coaching somebody, how do you get this message across to them? Or can anyone become a better brand or a better sense of what they are? Is that possible for everybody?
Yes, I truly believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for a very simple reason. If we go back to the definition I came up with for branding, that branding is the impression you make on others, it follows that you already have a brand.
Mm-hmm.
So what my clients learn to do is ask themselves, well, what is my current brand? In other words, what impression am I already making? Sometimes they know, but often they don't. And one of the techniques they can use to discover it is to talk to a coach and to talk to other people and get feedback from us as coaches and from the people in their circles, people that they know and trust, as to what kind of impression they make. So really, everyone can discover and develop their personal brand.
Excellent. So as you started coaching, and I understand you made the pivot to become a full-time career coach a few years ago. So as you made that pivot, how do you prepare yourself from terms of process, technology? Just give us some insights as to how you started your entire journey.
Certainly. I was already running a branding business, and I decided to add coaching to my portfolio. I did a couple of things. The first was to find a way to make it easy for my clients to schedule coaching sessions with me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that, of course, we can do on Simply.Coach, is invite clients to book time with us on our profile pages. That was invaluable. I think that was the best investment I made in my business, is to have a scheduling tool. I also then myself hired a coach to teach me about how to manage my time and my calendar better. When you're running your own business as a coach, and actually even if you work with an agency as I do part-time, it's really important to make time for yourself
Mm-hmm.
and to be in control of your schedule. The more comfortable and at ease you can be with your schedule and how you spend your time, the better you'll show up for your clients as a coach. That's what I learned. So those were two of the things that I did. Was I created a way for clients to easily book time with me. And next, I learned how to use those tools well, and more importantly, how to manage my time. So those were just two of the things that I did.
How long do you work with your clients? Is it you work for a few months with them, or do you work until you get to a certain outcome? So, how does this happen with your clients in your business?
My clients work with me between 6 weeks to 9 or 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
It really depends on the client. I do have programs that I offer clients, 3-month programs, 6-month programs, and 8 to 9 month programs. I find it's ideal in career coaching to get clients motivated within the first few weeks so
Mm-hmm.
that by the time 3 or 4 months have elapsed, they are already on their way toward their next professional milestone. Looking back at the clients I've had over the last 5 years, I would say those who succeeded did so in a matter of under 6 months. But some people are very busy. I had a client who was a retail manager of a big store, and that client ended up being given management responsibility over a second store. So it took us 9 months to work together. But we did succeed in getting that client a new resume and positioning them for a career change. So it depends on the individual.
Mm. So, I as do a lot of executive coaching, and one of the changes I've seen is people seem to want results rather immediately. So, we used to have the gradual, do a chemistry session, spend a few sessions talking about what the goals are, etc. But I find now clients come and ask, okay, what will you give me after session one? Where will I have after month two? So I know there's a lot of literature which talks about outcome based coaching, etc. Where do you stand on that, Ari?
I view career coaching as being primarily outcome based. And
Mm,
so I have a list of so called deliverables, things that I can help the clients with immediately. If a client wants a quick result, one of the first things we can work on is what we call an exit statement. In other
mm,
words, what's leading you to pursue a new career? Or what's the story behind why you left your last job? Incredibly, even executives sometimes struggle to succinctly and clearly communicate why
mhm,
they're now in the job market or
mm.
why they're planning a change. So, getting that narrative perfect is a quick deliverable that I can work on with my clients in the first session that we work together.
And do you track multiple goals over a period of time? Do your clients sort of come back after a couple of years and you work with them again?
I've had all of that happen where clients come back to work with me again. And in general, we focus on 2 to 3 outcomes at most. I
Okay.
generally don't advocate focusing on more than 3 outcomes. And wherever possible, I find it a best practice to come up with a single goal, a single
Mhm.
overarching goal or purpose for the coaching. And then we make the individual outcomes part of that goal. When all of the outcomes connect to each other, it's easier to shift back and forth between them as we're working together and to measure everything in the context of the bigger goal.
Yeah, so I think that resonates with me, Ari, because in my own coaching also, I realize that there has to be a certain theme that a client work towards. And if you don't have that sort of a North Star, uh, it can be a very meandering journey. So that absolutely resonates. And so there are a lot of coaches, right? Today, there are a lot of certification bodies. It's practically a coach getting minted every minute, I would say, around the world. So as more and more folks with corporate experience become a coach, want to take that up as a profession, what would you give them as inputs? What would be your top three inputs be to them as they are looking to start their career as budding coaches?
It's a great question because I had some guidance from my coaching academy when I became certified as a coach. But among the best questions I was asked afterwards, after I started exploring options and opportunities and wondering exactly where to direct my energy and my new skills as a coach, was to ask the following question: who would benefit most from working with you? That's a question I would give someone who's studying to become a coach. Whom do you think would benefit most from working with you?
Mm-hmm.
Coaching is very broadly applicable, as you know, Venkat, in many fields, to many professions, in many spheres of life. And there are all types of coaching. Finding the people whom you can help the most will make you think about the services you can deliver. A second piece of advice I would give coaches, which took me years to learn, is to productize your offering. In other words, offer specific programs. Use tools like Simply.Coach to create journeys for your clients and offer those specific journeys. Productizing doesn't mean that you need to develop a course or that you need to write a book, as I did, but make your services into products so that it's easy for people to understand what you have to offer. And that's my third piece of advice: to make it clear to people what you offer, how much it costs, and what a typical coaching journey looks like. Create a website. A website is different and better than any social media platform because you have complete control over it. So I'm a big fan, and I happily pay to host my website, and I could probably be doing a better job of updating it, but to the extent that you can hire a professional to help you clearly communicate on your website what it is you have to offer, I'm a big fan of that.
I could fully agree. I just got that open on my machine as well. My first introduction to you was through your website, Ari, ariw.com. I think I saw that first, and then I think we met over a call. So it
Yes.
absolutely resonates with me, right? So the other trend that we see is I used to do a lot of one-on-one coaching in corporates, and increasingly I'm being asked to do a fair amount of group coaching as well. So I see this in executive coaching, business coaching, sales coaching, etc. Do you see that? Are there people asking you to do groups, or is it because of the nature of your work? Is it a lot of all one-on-one coaching?
I completely agree with your observation, Venkat. What we're observing in the market for career coaching is that companies are cutting back on their willingness to provide coaching. A lot of coaching, fortunately, has become productized. And so there are packages that companies can buy. That reduces their cost somewhat. But additionally, there's the perception that, well, people are busy and they might not stick around long. So if we invest in coaching them one-on-one, we might not see a return on that investment.
Mm-hmm.
Versus if we put them in a room with other people and they're coached together, we can have a better measure and metric of the effectiveness of that coaching. So I am, in fact, in the midst of a course about group coaching. I'm taking a course right now as we speak. And group coaching does definitely have some benefits.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to distinguish between group coaching and team coaching. Team coaching is coaching an entire team who together are working on one goal. In group coaching, coaches can acknowledge that every person in the group may have different goals and
Yeah.
desire different outcomes. But nevertheless, I agree with you that more companies are interested in group coaching and that there is a market for that. And that's one of the reasons I'm taking an updated course through the Association for Coaching about that subject.
Great to hear that. Uh, you also mentioned about your book, Ari. So what inspired you to write a book? What were I mean, I know that you blog, you got your website, your coaching. So what was your inspiration for writing a book?
Interestingly enough, I had been talking about, making videos about, and blogging about career development coaching for a few years. And I realized that I had said a lot of things again and again, particularly in regards to personal branding,
Mhm.
which became my passion. So what happened was I was considering developing a course, but then Bookboon Learning, which is based in the UK and has 3 million plus users on their platform, it's a professional development platform. They approached me, they found me and said, Ari, would you be interested in writing a book? And I thought, a book? Well, I do have the outline for a book because I was preparing a course. I created a course outline about personal branding. So I asked the publishers, what are your clients interested in learning? In other words, I don't want to write the 200th book about getting along with your manager. Tell me something that you don't have any books about. And it
Mm.
turns out that among the subjects that Bookboon's corporate clients were interested in learning more about is values and purpose, which are components of developing your brand. When you discover your values or discover your purpose, you can create a very strong, memorable brand. I said, aha, I have a book for you. so, so it wasn't that I thought to write a book. I thought to create a course. And then a publisher approached me and said, would you like to write a book? And I thought, oh yeah, I can just turn that course material into a book. Why not? And it has worked out.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And I think when we read a lot of books, a lot of websites, blogs, etc., there is always a quotable quote that coaches always use, right? And I'm sure you use a few of them as well. Anything comes to mind in terms of about coaching that absolutely you heard and say, hey, that's still resonating with me?
There are a couple. First of all, there's the concept around branding, which I developed. Someone actually came to me and said, how about, I was invited once to speak and I was asked, how about we call your presentation Your Brand Matters? And I thought, okay, that's not the title of my book. That's not a phrase I came up with, but I really liked it and I've come to embrace it. And it's a message that I can send to anyone. Your brand matters. The impression you make on others does matter. And you do have a brand. So why not celebrate it? Why not share it? Why not discover more about yourself and share that with the world? I think that's a wonderful thing. So your brand matters.
Absolutely.
Another quote I share about branding is, we are all more than our job titles.
Mm.
I'm happy to be known as a career coach, but I do more than just standard career coaching. I'm a brand coach. I help people develop their brands. And I can go on and on about this. The things that you are passionate about are much more than your job title and much more than whatever it is that you're known as. And the last quote that I really love and that I always think of when I'm coaching others is, ask a better question. As coaches, we're trained to ask our customers questions, good questions that make them think, but we can also ask them for better questions. When they ask us questions for which there's no answer, when will I land a new job? I can ask them, what's a better question to ask? What can we do today to get you closer to your goal? So, ask a better question is one of my favorite expressions. It's not as much of a quote as an expression, but it's a principle that we can all live by and celebrate.
Absolutely resonates, Ari, and especially the point you made about you're a career coach, you're also a brand coach. Ultimately, I think when we coach, we go much beyond the brief because clients talk about their
Yes.
life, etc. You don't sort of set the boundary and they let them talk. So sometimes I think there's a lot of labeling going around the sort of coaching we do. But
That's exactly right.
mm,
Especially in the professional world, in career
mm,
coaching,
mm,
clients get very attached to labels. The label might be what their profession is known as. It might be their professional title, their title at work. And sometimes titles don't tell us much. If someone tells me they're a vice president, that doesn't explain what they do.
So, last things, Ari, I mean, how do you see the future? I mean, there was the COVID which happened a few years ago. People talk about a recession that may come. So, what would your advice be to an aspiring coach? How do you prepare yourself for what could be a very uncertain world? How do you prepare yourself for that?
Coaches, I feel, are very well prepared for any uncertainty coming our way. The International Coaching Federation recently released their study of the coaching industry, and it's very optimistic for us. Many people have embraced coaching. Coaching has a role in so many walks of life that I see increased demand for what I'm doing. More and more people coming to me. I frankly struggle a little bit these days with my schedule to find time for people. And that's a very nice problem to have. I view that as a reason to be optimistic about opportunities. And we can't ignore trends and things that are happening in the world, whether it's the economy, politics, conflict around the world, or technology developments that might be threatening jobs, such as AI. Nevertheless, there are more and more tools coming online that can help us help our clients. And coaching at its core is people helping other people. There will always be a need for that. I am passionate about it. I expect to be doing this for the rest of my living days. So I'd love to invite anyone who's interested in coaching to join us. Come join us. Follow Venkat and Simply Coach. Listen to all the great things that they're sharing every Friday on LinkedIn, for example. And you will discover an amazing world.
Thank you, Ari. That's a lot of optimism, and I think we need to accept that, right? Sometimes you hear a lot of negative news. It's great hearing somebody as optimistic, and you've been very generous with your time today with us, Ari. I mean, the entire gamut of starting with how you work with, I think, brands and the point about professional branding and personal branding and the pivot. I think that's resonated really well with me. Use of technology process. And I think you mentioned about repeatable journeys. I think that was great to hear. And very gracious of you to share some of your learnings, which I'm sure a lot of aspiring coaches, newly minted coaches, I dare say even very experienced coaches who listen to this podcast would find very useful. Thank you again for being a part of our growth dialogue, Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. It was my pleasure, Venkat.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Growth Dialogues. Don't forget to subscribe to us wherever you enjoy your podcast.